Disclaimer: this content is intended for a mature audience only. Viewer discretion is advised. The hum of the washing machine filled the quiet of the house, steady and low like a heartbeat. I stood there, folding a damp sleeve over the edge of the drum, when I felt his presence behind me. Not a word spoken, just the warmth of him, the way his nearness made the air thicken. My breath caught, though the room was ordinary, the hour uneventful. In that small, unnoticed moment, the world shifted. He was my husband, the man I had built a life with, yet there were still times when his touch, or even his silence, reminded me of the first days we met. That sharp pull in my chest, that mix of comfort and danger. Love had grown into habit, but beneath it lived something wild, something that refused to be tamed by the years. The machine rattled softly, a rhythm beneath us, and I wondered if he could hear the unspoken questions in me. Was this just another evening, or was he about to break through the thin layer of routine that had settled between us? My hands were still damp, water dripping down my wrists, when his fingers brushed against my side, gentle, but certain. It wasn't just desire. It was the ache of wanting to be seen, to be remembered as more than the woman who washed clothes and filled cabinets. His eyes found mine, and in them I saw no guilt, no hesitation, only a daring kind of devotion that both frightened and steadied me. I didn't move. I couldn't. There was a current, a pull between us that spoke louder than words. The machine's vibration carried through the floor, the air, through me, until I felt as though the entire house was aware of this fragile, breathless pause. And then, he lifted me, effortlessly, as though he had decided long before this moment what he would do. My heart hammered, my thoughts a storm, and still. I didn't resist. There was no resistance left in me. But what startled me most wasn't his strength or even his daring, it was the way my body answered without permission, as if it had been waiting for this very interruption. And in that instant, suspended between fear and longing, I realized, something was about to change. Forever. His arms around me were steady, but my mind was anything but. Suspended above the hum of the machine, I could hear only two things, its steady vibration and the racing of my own heart. The small laundry room suddenly felt too full, its walls pressing closer, as though they too wanted to witness what was unfolding. He looked at me then, not as a man who had claimed a wife, but as someone searching, asking wordlessly if I would let him close, let him break through the shell of routine. His gaze wasn't new to me, yet it had been a long time since it carried this kind of urgency. For years we had lived side by side, meals shared, bills paid, quiet evenings spent in front of the television. Comfort had come, yes, but with it, a silence that sometimes felt like loss. I remembered the young man he once was, the boy who used to wait outside my classroom with flowers, who wrote me letters when he couldn't find the words aloud. Somewhere in the grind of everyday life, I had wondered if that boy still existed. And now, with the tremor of the machine beneath us and his hand at my waist, I realized, he had never left. He had only been waiting for me to remember him. A flood of warmth spread through me, mingled with doubt. Did I deserve this sudden claim of passion? Had I let myself become invisible to him, lost in chores and responsibilities? His forehead rested briefly against mine, and in that small gesture I felt an answer, not in words, but in the weight of his closeness. He saw me. Still. The air between us thickened, carrying questions neither of us spoke. Was this moment an escape, or a return? Would it bind us closer, or tear open wounds we had kept hidden beneath politeness? I wanted to ask him, but my voice faltered. Instead, I held on to him as the machine hummed its endless rhythm, steady as a drumbeat. The tension between us deepened, not loud, not dramatic, but powerful, like a tide rising so quietly you don't notice until the shore is gone. And then, just as I thought I might give in completely, he whispered something low against my ear, something I had not expected, something that made my breath still. But I cannot tell you yet what he said. Not now. His words lingered in the air, unsteadying me. They weren't loud, not even fully formed, just a whisper that felt like both confession and plea. For a moment, I wanted to ask him to repeat them, to make them solid and undeniable. But something in me knew better. Sometimes, when the heart finally speaks, it does so in fragments, and pressing too hard might silence it again. He held me as though afraid I might slip away, though I hadn't moved. My body was there, yes, but I could sense his fear was about something deeper, that part of me that had, over time, retreated into silence. And he wasn't wrong. I had hidden pieces of myself away, dulled edges to survive the daily weight of being dependable, of being steady. As the machine hummed beneath us, memories surfaced uninvited. Nights when we barely spoke, mornings when we passed each other with quick kisses that felt like habits instead of choices. I thought about the fight last winter, when I accused him of never seeing me, and he stood in the doorway looking shattered, unable to answer. We never spoke of it again, but I carried the heaviness of that silence ever since. Now, here we were. Not in the bedroom, not in a place marked for tenderness, but in this cramped laundry room where clothes turned endlessly in water and soap. Perhaps that was the point. Maybe passion doesn't wait for the perfect setting. Maybe it insists on reminding you, even in the most ordinary places, that you are alive. And yet, alongside the longing, I felt fear. If I surrendered, if I let this moment unravel me, would I be able to face what lay underneath? What if we weren't just reaching for each other, but for the ghosts of who we used to be? Could love be reignited by force, or was this only a flicker, bound to burn out once the machine stopped humming? He brushed a strand of damp hair from my face, eyes steady, searching. The intimacy in his touch made my chest ache. I wanted to tell him everything, that I was afraid, that I missed him, that I needed this as much as he did. But the words caught, fragile, trembling. And so the silence grew heavier, weighted with everything we both longed to say but didn't. The machine's cycle was ending. And I wondered, what would end with it? The machine slowed, its rhythm faltering into uneven tremors before settling into silence. The sudden stillness made everything louder, the thrum of my pulse, the sound of his breath, the unspoken weight between us. Without that mechanical hum to blur the edges, we were left raw, suspended in a moment that demanded clarity neither of us seemed ready to give. He didn't step back. His hands remained at my waist, grounding me yet urging me forward. His eyes searched mine with a quiet desperation, as though asking, "Do you still choose me?" And though I wanted to answer, the truth was tangled. I thought of the years we had spent building this life together, the sacrifices tucked into corners of our home. The meals we ate too quickly, the late nights we survived on fatigue and obligation. Somewhere along the way, love had learned to wear practical clothing, to disguise itself in routines. And yet, here in this cluttered space, love had ripped off its mask and demanded to be seen, unruly, inconvenient, undeniable. Inside me, two selves wrestled. The careful woman who measured every word, who sought safety in predictability. And the younger woman, the one who used to laugh too loudly, who believed passion could bend the world, who wanted to be carried without asking. Both of them lived inside me still, and both reached for him now. He whispered my name, soft, as though testing whether it still belonged to him. My chest tightened. I wanted to answer with certainty, to give him proof that we were unbreakable. But the truth clung stubbornly to silence. What if I could not bridge the distance we had allowed to grow? What if passion was not enough to repair what we had neglected? Yet when his forehead pressed against mine, when his breath mingled with mine, all those questions scattered like fragile leaves in wind. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt completely seen. The intensity of it terrified me, because to be truly seen meant I could no longer hide. The laundry room seemed to hold its breath, waiting. I knew if I spoke now, if I reached for him with everything I had, we might find our way back, or we might uncover truths that would shatter us. And just as my lips parted to finally answer him, a sound from the hallway broke through the silence, small, unexpected, pulling me back into the fragile tension of choice. The sound from the hallway was faint, just the creak of a floorboard, a reminder that the world outside our fragile bubble still existed. Yet it was enough to fracture the spell. I stiffened in his arms, my eyes darting toward the half-open door. He didn't move, not right away, but I felt the tension in his body, the same question flickering across his mind. What if we are not alone in this moment? For a heartbeat, neither of us breathed. The silence pressed heavier now, not with desire but with something sharper, fear, perhaps, or the weight of being caught in a truth too raw to explain. His grip loosened slightly, not in rejection, but in hesitation. I saw the shift in his face, the flicker of vulnerability he rarely let surface. He wasn't the invincible man who had lifted me so easily moments ago. He was the boy I once knew, the one who feared losing me before he ever had me, who used to write long letters because he couldn't trust his voice to say enough. I touched his hand, a small gesture, almost instinctive. He looked at me as if searching for reassurance that I was still with him, despite the door, despite the years of quiet distance that had built this fragile chasm between us. But then another thought, darker, cut through me. What if the interruption had not come? Would I have allowed myself to fall without restraint? And if so, would it have been love, or desperation for what we used to be? The question stung, because I wasn't sure of the answer. And maybe he wasn't either. He leaned closer, voice low, trembling in its honesty. Tell me you still want this. Tell me you still want me. The plea in his words unraveled me. It wasn't lust, it was longing, threaded with fear of being invisible in my life. His voice was a mirror of my own buried ache. Yet the hallway seemed to listen, and the silence outside the door felt like judgment. I opened my mouth, but the truth refused to come out neatly. I could not give him a simple yes, because my heart was tangled in years of unspoken grief. Nor could I deny him, because the heat of his touch told me he was still home. And so, between us, the unanswered question burned brighter than any answer could. The door creaked again, then fell silent. Nothing followed, no footsteps, no voices, only the house returning to stillness. Yet that small sound had been enough to force the truth to the surface, raw and unavoidable. I could no longer hide behind the vibration of the machine, behind the safety of silence. I looked at him. Not just at him, but into him. His face was steady, though I could see the storm in his eyes. This wasn't about passion anymore. It was about a deeper hunger, to be chosen, to be remembered, to know that what we had built hadn't quietly crumbled into habit. My throat tightened, but I let the words escape, uneven and trembling. I've been afraid. Afraid that we lost who we used to be. Afraid that all you saw in me was the routine, the chores, the endless cycle of days. My voice cracked. But I never stopped wanting you. I only forgot how to show it. For a long moment he said nothing. His hands slipped from my waist, and the loss of his touch made the air colder. I thought I'd broken something by speaking, until he cupped my face with both hands and exhaled a shuddering breath. You think I didn't feel the same? His words carried both pain and relief. I thought you were drifting away, that the silence meant I wasn't enough anymore. So I tried to hold everything together with routine, because at least routine kept you close. The truth landed between us, heavy and luminous. We hadn't lost each other, we had hidden behind patterns, both of us afraid the other had already left in spirit. The ache we felt wasn't absence, it was longing, waiting for a moment like this to break free. Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't turn away. I leaned into his touch, the familiarity of it, the newness all at once. And there, in that ordinary room, with a basket of unfolded laundry at our feet, the extraordinary happened. We chose each other again. The twist was not passion itself, but what it revealed, that love was still alive, buried beneath the weight of unspoken fears. Not gone. Not broken. Only waiting to be claimed. And as his forehead pressed to mine, the silence no longer frightened me. It felt like home. The laundry room felt different now. The walls were the same, the hum of the machine had faded, and yet something had shifted. Where minutes before there had been tension and silence, there was now a stillness that carried peace. We didn't need to speak immediately. Our bodies leaned against each other, steady in the quiet acknowledgement that something long buried had risen to the surface. He brushed his thumb across my cheek, tender, almost reverent. "We can't go back," he said softly, "but maybe we can go forward differently." The words sank deep. It wasn't a promise of perfection, nor a denial of the years that had worn us down. It was simpler than that, an invitation to rebuild, not as the couple we once were, but as who we had become. Two people who had faced distance, fear, and doubt, and had chosen to step closer anyway. I thought about the unspoken fights, the nights when love felt like duty, the days when we moved around each other like strangers. Those memories hurt, but they no longer held the same weight. They were part of our story, but not its ending. "Forward," I whispered back, my fingers curling into his shirt. And I meant it. Not as a vow to never falter, but as a choice I was willing to make again and again. We stood there for a while, surrounded by baskets of unfolded clothes, the smell of detergent, the lingering hum of what had almost come undone. And yet, in that very ordinariness, beauty emerged. It wasn't grand or cinematic, it was human, imperfect, alive. When we finally left the room, it wasn't with the weight of secrets but with the fragile strength of honesty. The hallway light, once an interruption, now guided us forward. And as I looked at him, I realized the truth. Passion may ignite love, but it is honesty that keeps it burning. And that was enough. Because love, at its core, is not about never being lost. It is about finding each other, again and again.